Captain Midnight.
If you've seen my previous videos, you know that I enjoyed Spider-Man Homecoming quite a bit. I think it's a fun, well-crafted, and exciting return to form for Peter Parker. And now, I'm excited to see what's next for the character. Sure, the next movie's probably a couple years off, and Spider-Man will be making another appearance before then in the massive Avengers Infinity War, but hey, it's never too early to speculate, right? Oh, it is? Well, I'm going to anyway. So here's a list of a few ideas of where Marvel and Sony can take the webhead in this next movie. And to talk about what I want to happen next, I'm gonna need to talk about the end of Homecoming, so, you know, consider yourself spoiler warned.
Spider-Man and his amazing friends.
King of Crime. So if you've seen Homecoming, you know that it ends with Matt Gargan trying to get Adrian Toomes to reveal Spider-Man's secret identity, setting up the possibility that Gargan could return as the Scorpion in the next movie. I'm okay with that, I guess. Nothing against the actor at all, who was great in Better Call Saul and Far Cry 3. But the Scorpion has just never been all that compelling of an antagonist to me. He's not usually portrayed as very intelligent, and he doesn't have much of an emotional hook that makes me care about him. If he's in the movie, great, I just don't want him to be the main villain. Last week I touched on the idea of Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin from the Netflix Daredevil show making his return to the MCU, and I think this would be the perfect place to bring him in. He could pay for Gargan's suit or transformation into the Scorpion, and hey, both of them seem to be spending a lot of time in prison, so it'd be easy to write that they're prison buddies, and it would be great to see the Kingpin be the real power behind the Scorpion's brute force. Okay, mainly, I just want some great, tense conversations between Holland's Peter Parker and D'Onofrio's Kingpin. No one has brought that character to life better than D'Onofrio. Holland's Spider-Man is basically no older than a child. But with a little bit of rage, this version of Kingpin reveals that he never really stopped being one either, and that emotionally, he'll always be the same age he was when he murdered his father with a hammer. And I can't think of anyone who would annoy him and bring that out of him more than this wisecracking kid moving in and threatening everything that's important to him. Is this too much to explore in a mostly family-friendly Spider-Man movie? Maybe. But a lot of this would be more interesting as subtext anyway, not just thrown in the audience's face. I think the bigger question would be if the Netflix and movie sides of Marvel could finally get along well enough to start sharing characters. Throw Sony into the mix and it sounds pretty unlikely. But hey, I can dream, and if they ever do figure out a deal to make it happen, maybe a certain handicapped attorney could make an appearance too.
Spider-Man has arrived at Blockbuster, and we've got the best way to bring the movie home. Buy it on
OSBORN REBORN. I hesitated to put this on the list because Norman Osborn is already a character that we've seen plenty of in the Spider-Man films. First in Willem Dafoe's awesome, terrifying take on the Green Goblin, and then again as Chris Cooper's, boring guy dying of goblin disease, or whatever happened in that movie. So why mess with him again? Well, I started thinking about Norman Osborn as a character, separate from the Green Goblin, and realized how well he could play off of Holland's Spider-Man. Because in many ways, Norman Osborn is the dark, villainous mirror of Tony Stark, who of course is this Peter's mentor. And using him in a movie that utilizes Norman's role as the shady CEO of Oscorp just as much, if not more, than as Green Goblin could be interesting. The key, of course, would be to make this version of Norman very different from previous ones. So maybe this one will talk to chairs less.
What could be more perfect? Me on the cover, not the Hulk. Pizzazz, the almost perfect new monthly.
VENOM, but actually good this time. Everyone's favorite murderous symbiote monster has had a really rough time of it in Hollywood. Sure, he's been done well on TV, but man was he butchered in Spider-Man 3, and that might be hard to come back from. He's had a long gestating solo movie that Tom Hardy has signed on for, but I have to say, I'm still skeptical. Introducing a new version of Venom without him being in a Spider-Man film first just feels wrong. But here's how I'd like to see him used in the next Spider-Man movie if they decide to go that direction. Remember Agent Venom? For those unfamiliar with the comics, Agent Venom follows Flash Thompson, now a disabled war vet with PTSD who lost both legs in Iraq, who bonds with the symbiote and becomes a very different kind of Venom than the Eddie Brock version most people are familiar with. And you can probably spot the problem there already. Flash Thompson is already a character in the MCU, and I don't see Tom Hardy playing this Flash Thompson. So instead, I'd like to see them fuse the Eddie Brock and Agent Venom storylines together. In the MCU continuity, Eddie Brock could be introduced as a struggling and depressed vet who stumbles across the symbiote. Now, I understand that a change this big will probably make a lot of fans angry, but I think it's a great starting point nonetheless. Probably wondering, what would this Venom's motivations be for hating Spider-Man? Well, think about it. Who does this version of Peter respect and look up to the most? And, whose company do we know for sure has dealt weapons to people who have used them to murder American soldiers in the Middle East? Oh, right. So it wouldn't be hard to create a motivation for this highly trained by the military version of Venom to be hell-bent on taking out Stark employees or even Stark himself, and Spider-Man getting in the way. Would it be a little redundant to have two Spider-Man villains in a row that are at least partially motivated by their hatred of Tony Stark? That might be true, but I kinda like the unifying theme that it could create across these new Spider-Man movies. While most Marvel characters are off fighting world-ending threats and guys with glowy space rocks, Spider-Man is left dealing with the collateral damage and the broken people that it leaves behind. It's often said that Spider-Man is a street-level hero, and to me, that's what a street-level hero does. And for the Venom standalone movie, it would be pretty easy to take a character like that, a disabled war vet who gets superpowers, and create more of an anti-hero out of them than just a straight-up villain. And that could be really interesting. And yes, I know the Venom movie is currently set to come out before any of the Homecoming sequels, but we've seen plenty of potential Spider-Man spin-offs come and go through the years, so I wouldn't be surprised to see it pushed back once again.
Web-spinning Spider-Man.
This is Web Spinning Spider-Man with Flyaway Action Pack.
The Go for Broke option. The Spider-Verse. That was a fun event from a few years ago, wasn't it? We got to see all those different versions of Spider-Man interacting, and really any excuse to give Spider-Man 2099 some time to shine is good by me. Wouldn't really work being adapted to the screen. But a very loose adaptation that builds on the bones of dead Sony franchises? You know what sucks? The Tobey Maguire's run as Spider-Man ended as badly as it did. And you know what would be awesome? Loosely adapting the Spider-Verse, or even the Spider-Men miniseries, to do kind of a passing of the torch movie. We could finally get the proper closure that the Raimi films really deserve. Maybe Maguire could go out sacrificing himself like a hero. You know, like in Ultimate Spider-Man. There's a lot of possibilities there, and I think audiences would be pretty excited for it. And with the MCU being really willing to get weird now with stuff like Doctor Strange and this new Thor movie, having a comic booky sci-fi explanation to get Maguire's Peter into the MCU really wouldn't be that tough. But what about the Amazing Spider-Man films, you ask? Well, personally, I'm not really clamoring to see Garfield again. But to me, he wasn't the high point of that series. Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy was. So really, why not bring her back? Not the version from the Amazing films, who's, very dead, but another version from a reality where she got the spider powers. Gwen Stacy's Spider-Woman was probably the best thing to come out of the Spider-Verse series. I could see Emma Stone totally nailing that version of Gwen too, and bringing layers to it that she didn't really have a chance to when she was just relegated to being a love interest. Sony is so bent on getting their own Spider-Man franchises up and running, why not her? Is this the most out there idea of the bunch and the least likely to happen? Yeah, definitely. But does it also make me the most excited to think about? Yeah, also yes. So that's my list of a few ideas for a Homecoming sequel. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to like and subscribe, but I'd love to hear you guys weigh in too. Where do you think the Spider-Man franchise should go next?